We work so you can play. Mark II. Oh yeah.
Now what we'll do is we'll go over and we'll witness how the Hordes army differs slightly from the way that it manipulates all of the different powers that they're able to do with their spells.
Okay, so what we have on this side is a Warlock and 2 War Beasts. The Warlock starts the first turn with 5 Fury. Warmachine, where they give the Fury, they actually take Fury away. So what happens is, I'm going to make my Carnivian run, just like he did with his Berserker, but instead of giving it a Fury, like he gave it a focus, it's actually going to get angry because I made it run. So it's actually going to generate Fury. Its normal speed is 6, so I'm going to run it 12, which is going to generate 1 Fury. There's an ability you can use called Rile, which just makes a creature angry. It doesn't do anything else. Basically, it just makes more Fury. So I'm also going to Rile it twice. Next, I'm going to move my Caster up. And again, she's going to run as well. She usually has a speed of 7, so she could run 14. But if I run her up 14, she's going to be ahead of the Carnivian and probably be a really likely target. So we're actually just going to move her up behind the Carnivian, give her a little bit of a shield wall there, and move her Fury with her. Now, each War Beast has something called an Animus. It's basically a spell that's resident inside that beast. And a Warlock that's nearby can actually make use of most of those. Sometimes they can only be used on the beast itself. So he has one called Spiny Growth, which gives him +2 armor. So I'm actually going to cast that on herself instead. So that's going to cost me 2 Fury, so I'm getting rid of 2 that she has. And right now she has Spiny Growth, so she actually has 2 extra armor. And if someone were to hit her in melee combat, they'd actually take damage because she's actually covered in spines at the moment. And last, I'm just going to run the Rake up. One thing to note is that she has a command range, just like the other caster, which is double her Fury stat. Her Fury stat's only 5, so she has a 10-inch command range. He's just within it. If he had been just a little bit further away, I couldn't even make him run because she moved too far away from her War Beasts. So we're just pretty lucky right there. And I'm not going to run him his full 14, we're just going to bring him up to match the Carnivian. And that would make him slightly angry. And we're just going to rile him as well for 1 more Fury. At the beginning of my next turn, she's going to lose any Fury she has left over, and then leech what's on anything she can from creatures around her. If she doesn't leech it, they have to do what's called a threshold check, which is them basically trying to break free of her control. In the meantime, this Fury that she has left over, she can use to heal either herself or her creatures during Matt's next turn.
Alright, so now it's my turn again. As you can see, everybody's nice and close. We're going to be able to see some combat action at this point. Now the very first thing that happens is that any focus left over is lost, and then she regenerates all of her focus. So this is the exact opposite of the Horde's way of doing it. So now that she has 6, she's going to allocate her focus. Now because the Berserker is nice and close to his target, he's most likely going to be able to charge it. And so she's going to allocate 3 focus, which is the maximum amount that you can allocate to a Warjack. Because he's going to be able to use that Warjack to boost his damage and make extra attacks. So hopefully he'll be able to actually charge in and kill the War Beast within 1 turn, which is quite possible. And then she's going to keep the last 3 focus for herself, because she can't allocate them to units anyway. So the very first thing that we're going to do is she is going to use 2 of her focus to cast Boundless Charge, which has a range of 6. She's going to cast it on the Berserker. Obviously he is within range. And basically it allows him, on his activation, to charge 2 inches further than normal. Normally when you charge, you move your speed plus 3 inches. But because she just cast a spell on the Berserker, he's going to be able to charge his speed plus 5 inches, so it'll be 9 inches in total. And hopefully that'll bring me within charge range of the War Beast on Mike's side, which it looks like it will be. Charge range is actually just half an inch away. You don't have to be touching it, you have to be within half an inch of your target. So she's going to do that. And then she's going to keep her last focus because she doesn't have any spells that only cost 1. And what she'll do is she'll just actually stay where she is to keep protected. And she'll still be within the command range of her Berserker. Next, we will activate the Berserker. And of course, the very first thing he has to do, because of the spell that was cast on him, is to do his Boundless Charge. So he has 9 inches, which as you can see brings us to within half an inch of his War Beast. Now this charge has to be made in a straight line, but it doesn't have to be made straight at the War Beast. I could make it in this direction And maybe if I'm lucky, if he happens to be looking the other way, I might be able to actually get behind him. And there are bonuses to being behind him. In this case, he's facing straight forward, so there won't be any bonus for me to do a different charge other than just a straight line. He'll be able to move his 8 inches to get right in front of the War Beast. And we'll move his focus with him to remember that they are with him. Now you get to see how a melee attack works. Basically, all attacks work a very similar way. You roll 2 dice. You add whichever skill is incorporated with that attack. In a case of a melee attack, we use the MAT. In the case of a ranged attack, we use the RAT. Now, the card that you're seeing right here has some scratches on it with some new numbers. It's because this is still the Mark I card, and I've just updated it to the Mark II rules. So he has a melee attack of 5. So I'm going to roll 2d6, I'm going to add that 5, and I'm going to try to beat his beast's defense. So the DEF that you see right there is what I have to beat. If I manage to beat it, then I'm going to have to roll 2d6 again and add my strength and the power of the weapon that I'll be using, which in this case are my axes, and I have to beat his armor, which is also on his card. If I beat his armor, then the number that I beat it by is how much damage I managed to do to his war beast. Now, another thing I should mention is normally it costs the Warjack 1 focus to charge, but in the case of the Berserker, he has a special rule which allows him to charge without using a focus, because he's most likely going to blow up at the end of his turn anyway. And so he charges in, and when he charges in, he's now going to attack. Now when he charges, he gets to roll 2d6, he adds his MAT, and he tries to beat his War Beast defense, which happens to be 11. A War Beast and Warjacks are typically very easy to hit because of how big and slow they are. But his armor will probably be much harder to penetrate, which we'll get to in a second. What I could do is I could use the focus to boost this roll to get to roll 3d6 rather than 2d6, but because his defense is only 11 and my MAT is 5, that means I only have to roll 6 or higher on 2 dice. So you might want to do it, but in this case I'm going to take the chance and not use that focus yet. So I have to roll 6 or higher to hit. So I rolled 3 and missed. So my first attack is a miss. So my second attack, because he has 2 axes, I will do this again. In this case, I'm not going to boost it. And that's also a miss. So I am out of attacks. There's only 2 attacks that I can do. But what I can do with my focus, in this case, is I can use one to make an extra attack. Let's see if I can do better than a 3. There we go. So that's 11 plus 5 is 16. That beats his defense. His armor is 18. So now what I'm going to do is I roll 2d6 plus my strength plus the power of the weapon, and in which case this is 5 and my strength is 11. So I'm going to roll 2d6 plus 16, and every number I beat his 18 by will be a damage that he will take. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another focus to boost this damage. So basically I roll 3 dice, which that really sucked, and I add 5 to my strength and power of 16, which is 21, and his armor is 18, so I deal 3 damage. And then I roll to see which location on his beast I roll the damage. So I do 3 damage to 6, which is his spirit. And we won't go into too many details of what that means yet, but basically if certain parts of the Warjack or certain elements of the War Beast get completely destroyed, they get negative modifiers to their attacks, or they could die if enough happens. So that's my first attack. Now the Berserker has a special rule that he gets +1 to his attack and +1 damage for every successful hit. So I'm going to use this last focus to make one more attack, and I'm going to attack again. And he gets a +1, so now his MAT is 6 rather than 5. So I have to roll 5 or higher. There we go, I got a 7, so that makes 13, and that beats his 11, so I hit him. Now I'm going to roll to damage him. And I get a +1 to this as well. So this is 16 plus 1 is 17, plus 8 is 25, and his armor is 18. So he gets 7 damage, and I'm going to roll to see where he gets it. It's to his 3, which is his body. Now the Berserker has a special rule that if he makes 2 successive attacks with his axes, he can then get a free headbutt, which is a power attack that Warjacks can normally do. And won't go into too many details of how it works. It's just basically another attack, but it's just with his strength. He doesn't get to use the extra power of the axes. So we'll roll to see if we hit him with the headbutt. And I get another +1/+1 because he did damage last time. Now that's a Berserker special rule, not a general rule. So now his MAT is going to be 7 rather than 5 because he's already made 2 successful attacks. So the headbutt hits because 7 plus 9 is 16, which beats his defense of 11. Now the power of the headbutt is only 11 because it doesn't add the power of the axe. So it'll be 11 plus 2 because he's done 2 successful attacks, so 13, plus, alright, Snake Eyes. So that's 15 in total. Now since 15 is lower than his armor, it did not successfully do any damage. If a headbutt does successfully do damage, it knocks down its target as well as dealing that damage. So that Berserker charge that you just saw was pretty weak. Normally he wouldn't roll so bad. The Berserker normally gets to kill whatever he charges and does that too. But that's probably good, so it allows us to see a chance of how the War Beast will respond to him. Now the last thing I'm going to do in my activation is to activate my Man of War. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is I want to move up my Man of War Shock Troopers and shoot with their cannons that are in their shield cannons at his light war beast there. So they can only move 4 inches because they're rather slow and heavy. And this light war beast has a special rule that he can only be shot at if you're within 5 inches of him. Now their guns only have a range of 6 inches, so that's not too big a deal. But this guy is not within 5 inches, so he can't shoot. But he can, and he can. So we're going to have the two of them shoot. Shooting works exactly the same way as melee, except we use a ranged attack rather than a melee attack, which would make sense. In the case of the Man of War, their ranged attack is 6, and the defense of the Light War Beast is 15. So this is actually going to be a very difficult one to do, because they're going to have to roll 9 or higher to hit him. Now you'll notice that his defense is higher because he's smaller and faster, so he's harder to hit. His armor, however, is only 14, so if I do manage to hit him, it's easier to hurt him. So you can kind of see how that works together. The bigger guy has a lower defense, so he's easier to hit, but he has a higher armor, so he's harder to hurt. Whereas the smaller guy has a higher defense because he's fast and agile, but a lower armor, so if you manage to hit him, you can hurt him a lot easier. So the idea here is that he's just going to try to avoid getting hit to begin with. So I'll do them each individually. I have to roll 9 or higher. There's a 9, so the first one hits, and we'll do the second one. An 8, so he misses. So one of them shoots and hits. Now the power of the shield cannon is 14, which actually matches the armor of that creature. So we know that whatever I roll on my dice is going to be the damage that I'm going to deal. So I'm going to deal 14 plus 9, which comes up to 23, but then we subtract his 14 armor, which goes back down to 9. So I deal 9 damage. Now in the case of this Light War Beast, we're going to have to roll a location to see where we hit him. He has a total of 19 possible hit points, but still 9 is going to hurt. So I hit him on a 6, which is his spirit. Alright, so I've dealt a total of 9 damage to him, so he's wounded, but he's still fine for now. So that is the end of my turn. So now it is back to the Legion of Everblight's turn. So we'll do one more turn to show you how their attacks are going to retaliate, and then we'll finish this video at that point, because that'll have given you a pretty good idea of how the Warmachine game works.
Okay, Lilith, now, just assuming we're still on the end of Matt's turn here, she has 3 Fury left. She's actually going to use 2 of them to heal the Carnivian, and 1 of them to heal the Rake. So I'm just going to erase some damage from their tracks.